Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. Let me pull up our question for today. Um, do you have your question, Sue? Or you want me to
Yeah,
read it? Okay.
I have it. My computer works now.
Okay. Oh, so you took your computer to Tongaya.
No, this is my husband's computer.
Oh,
My
he
computer
gave you
broke.
his computer. Okay, let me see. Okay, do you want to read the first question for us, Ito?
Sure. So the first question says, why did man, I don't even know how to say this word. This name, Meyer. I'll just say Meyer.
Yeah.
Why did Meyer choose to incorporate the story of Cinderella? Oh, she spelled of Cinderella into her story. Why was this fairy tale How has this fairy tale remained popular for adaptations and retelling over the year?
For myself, I think Cinderella. Um, I think most people apply that story to their lives because you know how she struggled in the beginning and
Uh-huh.
she find her way out um, just by her luck. And then she took that luck and she became successful. And so people use the story to see that there's always a hope at the end of the tunnel, and that I think Myers was just kind of putting around here to in her novel so that we could see that it still happened today, and because she wrote this book in 2012, so that was just recently,
Yeah.
and she wants us to see that it still happened, that people are for the story. Cinder was treated differently by the public, the society, and her family. And Myers wants us to see that this what's the word? This discrimination is still happen today. We still choose people that we can put them down just because of their skin color or where they're from or just what nationality they're from. So it does happen today. That's my ideas.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are that's pretty cool. When I was reading this, the question, I was thinking about something totally different. So it's really interesting to see how we read the same thing, but we have different thoughts about it. So
Hmm.
so when I read the question, like why I think that she chose to incorporate the story, I was thinking about, oh, it's a common story. Everybody loves the Cinderella story. And so why not incorporate it? Because I think a lot of people really like that kind of fairy tale. And so like for her to incorporate that kind of loosely into her story was really interesting um because I think that that could be one of the reasons why she chooses to use that story. And um, see, why was the fairy tale remained popular for adaptation? I think it also because it's something like the message behind the story is something that a lot of people can relate to. So because I feel like you said earlier, you talked about discrimination and And I think it's the same with the last story that we read, about the Monkey King. I think it's the theme of the story that is so popular with everybody because people can relate to it somewhat. And so, like, even though it's being retold over and over again, um, but the people like the message that it shares. So that's what I think.
Thank
Why it's
you.
so popular through the years.
Okay, I think we're good with the first question. The second one, what do you think are the audience and purpose of Cinder? How do you think it was received? Why? Feel free to look up reviews of the book to gauge reception. Um,
What is what do you think are the audience and purpose of Cinder? I
yeah,
think like the audience is pretty general. I mean, I think it relates mostly to more of a younger crowd, like young adults. I think that's kind of what her audience are. But I think a lot of people can relate to it as well. Because when I was reading it, it kind of reminded me of like this cartoon like that I used to watch before. It's kind of like a sci-fi feel. And so like I think also people that really like sci-fi stories, they would really like this kind of. Is that even what this thing is asking? The
no, no,
audience.
no. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like cuz my one of my favorite shows when I was younger, I used to watch Sailor Moon. So it
Uh
had that
huh.
same kind of feel to me. So I kind of enjoyed it. I kind of enjoyed reading. So I think audience
Um,
wise, that's kind of
yeah.
what it's like. What do you think?
I think for me as an audience, by reading this book or the novel, hold on a second. Let me just pull up the question again. Yeah, so I think for me, just by reading the book, I think the purpose of Cinder is that is to help us see how it was just like what you mentioned, the Monkey King. In the
Mhm.
beginning, when Cinder met the prince at the booth, she was hiding herself. She was hiding that she was a cyborg and that she
Yeah.
didn't want the prince to know. And she mentioned that she hates it, that she hates being a cyborg. She hates the person that created her, whatever. And and just because of that, like, it shows us that how she did not, how she didn't accept who she was. But then
Yeah.
later on, when Dr. Erlin took her in by force
Uh-huh.
and started to experience her for the plague that was happening in the society or in the world, and then we
Uh-huh.
find out later that she's different from every cyborg that he's been working on. And he said to her that she does not know how much worth she is, you know. When he
Right.
said this, it was so powerful to me. I was like, holy cow, like Cinder did not even know like that the person that created her, he was one of the best, smartest person. That's what Dr. Erling told her. He was one of the smartest person that he created her differently in. It took Cinder a while to accept that, to believe what he said.
Right.
So from my point of view, it helps me to see that we might not know, you know, what we are capable of doing, and if you know whatever opportunities that come in our way, let's just take it and apply it and see what more can we do.
Yeah.
It's like Cinder.
Yeah. I think also like the purpose of Cinder is I think it's kind of like the message. is to help people like not. I think one of the main messages not discriminating because um, in the story you can see that cyborgs were considered second class
Yep.
because of their um, because they have like machine parts and things like that. But
Uh-huh.
but it just kind of reminds me because um, in my I'm majoring in education, but I'm also doing like a certification with special education, and so like it just kind of reminds me um, of the people that I want to work with, and like a lot of them are being discriminated just because some of them are in wheelchairs, or some of them are they can't talk properly, or some of them have like um, a disability that you know it's not their fault that they have them, but it's that's just what kind of like what I was thinking about. Um, One of the purpose of Cinder is to um, have awareness for all kinds of different people and things that they have. And so I think like that's one of the messages is not to discriminate against people based on just their who they are or what they look like or what disabilities that they might have. So that's just kind of what my take is as far as purpose and what I think it is.
Yep.
Um,
I think exactly that's, yeah. I think that's the purpose of Cinder.
I think also like sacrifice for the people that you love. I think that's another purpose is like teaching us of the importance of sacrificing or like standing for what we like. Um, when I was reading it, and then there's a part there where it talked about Prince Kai and like he's wanting to marry what's her name, Queen Lilana,
Yeah.
because and it was because it was his he's he was trying to say like it's kind of like his responsibility to his people or something like that. And
Yeah.
so like he it just showed like how much he loved his people too, that he was willing to do that even though she was trying to warn him and everything. But
Yeah.
yeah. So the other part of the question, it says, how do you think it was received and why? So I actually did look up some of the reviews of the book. Um, well, I think personally for me, I really enjoyed the book. Um, do you think this is asking how it was received by readers?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Did they like it or did they not?
Well, I personally liked it because it kind of gives that Sailor Moon feel, and I like Sailor Moon. So it's kind of like, and I like sci-fi too, so I really liked it. But actually, something that I learned when I was reading it, it said that I don't know if it's true or not, but one of the people said that the reason why that she chose to base it on Beijing was the original story was supposedly about or written in Beijing or about something in China. So I thought that was pretty cool. But back to the question. Um, I think a lot of people liked it. Some some even gave them really good ratings. But there's another person that she gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And she said it was because it wasn't really it didn't give a lot of background information or like anything Chinese. It was more sci-fi. and I think she was just expecting it to be more Asian like, because, or like, not Asian like, but like a lot of elements from their culture, um, a lot of different elements from the Chinese culture implemented into the book, but it wasn't. So it didn't have that much in there. But I think overall it was received quite well. At least by me, I received it quite well. And I think it's just because I really enjoyed the storyline and I like Cinderella stories. So
Yeah, I think it was kind of different theme, how she was a mechanic, and then there was a play going on. And
yeah,
so when I read it, I was like, this is really interesting because it it kind of like shows us the other way of Cinderella instead of just like, you know, just being a servant at home. But then this one, it was about her, that she has like this really talented part of her that she was able to help anyone that has problem with anything mechanic. And and then she went to the ball. She went to tell the prince the truth about his fiance, or the lady that he was gonna marry. And then
hmm,
she walked in, and then she was one of the special guests of the prince. So it was kind of different from Cinderella for me,
yeah,
but it was a good way to portray that there's another way to look at it instead of just looking at it the same way that we see Cinderella.
uh-huh.
That's my point of view. Okay. Thanks for looking up the reviews of the book.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, the next one is, what societal attitude, values, or ideals are conveyed and challenged in this book? I think that's what we just talked about, huh? How um, the society, even today, how they choose who to accept and who to not. And and then this book was, it's just able to help us see how some people are really judgmental, and it makes, like, for example, Cinder herself, it makes her hate herself and for who she was. And so I think does that answer the question? What do you?
Yeah. Um, like I think as far as societal attitude, um, values or ideals conveyed and challenged in this book. I think like you know how we talked about I guess acceptance, because and discrimination. Um, Here I am talking about discrimination again, but like I feel like those are two things that are very big in this story, especially like with how the people's attitude was towards especially people, what is that, the lunars, when like for example when they found out that she was both a lunar and a cyborg, they were they were trying to kill her. Like in their law, that's it's unacceptable to be a cyborg and a lunar at the same time. Um, and when I was reading that, like I was thinking about like how in our time still, but back a few decades ago, when that was the thing, you know, but if you're biracial, if you're black and white, it wasn't like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. But that's
I
kind of
didn't know
like,
where you're coming from. Yeah.
yeah. And then even up until now, like, they still have to go through that, you know? I mean, they're not killed or anything, but like a lot of them, like, people are looking at them and like, oh, they're too white to be black, or they're too black to be white. But really, they're both because,
Mm.
so in this case, it's like she's a cyborg and a lunar, so that that cannot happen. And so I think I was thinking about it in that sense, and how the society in in this story did not accept that.
Yep.
And even she was ashamed of herself because
Mm.
she was a cyborg and she didn't want him to know, and you know her foot fell off and
Mm.
everything. And so like it's nowadays, I think some people are still like that. Like they're too afraid to say that they're this or they're that, or
Yep.
they're ashamed of themselves. So
Yeah, I agree. I think also like when Cinder, she also like forget herself
mhm.
when she find out that she's the cure or whatever.
Yeah,
um she volunteered herself just because to save her half sister or her stepsister.
right.
What's her name?
Um,
Sorry,
what's
that's
her name?
huh?
Her stepsister's name?
Yeah,
Um,
I forgot.
um,
But
I was gonna say, is it Peony?
yeah, Peony. So yeah, so she was trying to save Peony, by giving herself in and letting Dr. Erlin do some tests on her, like
Yeah.
she can it can kill herself because she thinks that Peony had a chance. She had hope that she's gonna live, but it
Hmm.
didn't happen. And so
Yeah.
it just gives me the idea that it's okay to push ourselves to
Yeah.
help others, even though the solution might not come the way we want it to, but
Mhm.
you know, Cindy loves her sister just because of doing that.
Yeah.
So that's something I learned. The next one it says, how does Cinder challenge conventional literary forms and genres? Right, genres. Oh, I hate that word.
Genre.
I know.
It's okay. Took me forever to learn how to say it.
I've seen this challenge conventional.
So genre, I think it's a sci. What does it say again? How does the
How does Cinder challenge conventional literary forms in general?
well, like I think like it's not very conventional because although it's talking about I mean although it is kind of based on Cinderella, but it's totally different from the usual Cinderella stories.
Yep.
And so in that sense I think it's different. But as far as literary forms, um I'm not sure.
I think like just like what you said, because Cinder was not. She was like kind of. She did when she finished her mechanic work, whatever. She went home and she do all those chores, and
Mm-hmm.
the mechanic, like, just because she was a cyborg mechanic and she was the best mechanic out of all, and like that's what the novel was talking about. It
Yeah.
makes me it like it's really different from all the Cinderella I know,
Right.
and because of that, she was people were able to they didn't like her because she was the best. She was no one had her talent to fix whatever problem they have. So even her family, her stepmom and her stepsisters, they hated her because she was so good at it. And she was really talented. And even she was really young as well. So
Yeah.
when she met the prince was really they didn't even meet in like how the other Cinderellas they didn't
Uh-huh.
even met in the forest or whatever. He came to her for help
Yeah.
instead of meeting out of nowhere and
Mm.
have love at first sight.
I know. So it's kind of different that
Yeah,
in that.
he came in and seek for her help,
Mhm.
and then she decided, okay, yeah, I can help you, and that's how they met. And I
Yeah.
think
It
that's
wasn't like birds singing and
yeah, it wasn't yeah, but
singing
I
songs
could
in the
tell,
woods.
but I could tell she was kind of panic and kind of So I
Yeah.
think she did kind of have a feeling for him when they first
Right.
met because she was so nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think that's how it's different from all the other Cinderella story. Just because don't delete my word document.
Yeah.
Just because,
Um.
yeah,
No.
just because she was able to, yeah, mechanic.
Yeah. I think also like the way that she wrote the plot of the story, like how she set up this world and the way that the setting was, also like how she paced her story. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like it was kind of a little bit slow, but I still really enjoyed it. Um, like how she had it, she had written it, and then like also like um, because it reminds me of my favorite show. And so like I think in that sense I really enjoyed it. And like when I think like her use of imagery as well, um like she really explained it so well, like where when I was reading and she was explaining what a cyborg was, I was like, oh, I can see it in my head just by reading her explanation, and like how she was explaining what it looked like, the world and the things around it. I think she used she was very good at using imagery in 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 the story, and then like um just like having that plot to really show the importance of like the theme of the story, like
Mm-hmm.
sacrificing for love, which was in my thesis statement. Um, but yeah, that's what I.
Okay. Okay, our last question is each crew member should share a thesis statement that tells the novel's message about a particular theme. Crew members can help each other strengthen thesis statements and identify examples to support the claim of the thesis statement. Okay, so my thesis statement, I had to write it down because, I can't read it, was Myers used Cinder through the experiences she went through due to traditional beliefs and how those of her kind were treated to portray the theme of discrimination. The reason I chose this thesis statement was um, the whole novel. It was all about um, defining the people that are lunar or cyborg, and treating them as like an object instead of human being. Um,
Right.
by taking them in to be tested, and they even died from just by testing it. And it shows how people or human being does not even care about them. They don't see them as they are, even though they have half robot or whatever. They're
Right.
still they are themselves. They shouldn't be treated like that. And when, for example, when they took Cinder in to the experience room. They're supposed to volunteer, but Cinder didn't volunteer, but they didn't
It
care.
wasn't even her choice.
Yeah,
Right.
so they were just like, she didn't volunteer, and they were all like, that's okay,
Forced her.
just take her. So that
Mm.
shows how they don't care about them. And even Cinder, when she was in the booth, when she was working every day, she can sense people just didn't like her by just looking at her or walking past her booth. Like, they didn't want to get near her.
Hmm.
And um, she was also blamed for something that she didn't do. When the mom was blaming her for uh, Peony's sickness when she got it,
Right.
she blamed it was Cinder that bring it to her. And just all these things. Um, and even the part that I was really shocked about is when Cinder went in to see the prince at the ball, and the security was like, "Hey, what are you doing? Where's your ID?" Blah blah blah. And then she showed her ID, and the security was like, he was shocked.
You're
He
on the guest
"Hold on,
list.
you're one of the
VIP.
special guests, yeah." And so he announced it, and Cinder did not. That's why she didn't want to go to the ball, because she didn't want everyone to look at the prince. Oh wow, you're
You're
dancing
with
with
her.
the cyber girl. So she didn't want that to happen, but it happened. She went in, the prince, whoever announced that special guest is Cinder. So when she walked in, everyone didn't like her, and the stepmother steps in and says that she's a cyborg and blah blah blah. And the prince still willing to, like, don't talk to my special guest like that. And I think it was so cool how and like, you don't talk to her like that.
Yeah.
And she, like you said, like, it's a long novel. So many things happen in between. And man, like, seeing what Cinder's been through from the beginning all the way to the end of the novel, she's been discriminated, like, the
From
entire
day
time.
one, from the
Yeah,
beginning.
her whole life. If that was me, oh my gosh,
Peace
I would
out.
be like, yeah. She was like, everywhere she went, everyone that she contact with, she comes home, she experienced the same thing. There was no one to run into, or I do. She did have that one friend. It was Iko, whatever.
Eiffel.
Yeah. So it's so sad. Like, it was Aiko, that the only person that she can talk to and stuff, and
Yeah.
the stepsister Peony, and except that, there was just all everyone was just. So that's why I wanted to focus on discrimination on my thesis
Hmm.
statement. Is they use that, and then that turns into a belief, and
Hmm.
then it turns into a culture.
Right.
So yeah, that's my thesis statement.
Yeah. So my thesis is in Marissa Meyer's book Cinder. The author uses conflict imagery and plot to show the importance of sacrificing for love. And I think I used that because I thought that she used um, imagery quite well. And there's quite a lot of conflict in the story. And then also I really liked how she set up the plot of the story. And so like how all these three literary element ties to the importance of sacrificing for love. And I think um, throughout the story, you can see how that plays out, how her parents died, and how she was kind of hidden into this person because she was the rightful heir and they didn't want her to die or whatever. And then um, the prince wanting to marry that terrible person because he he was trying to see of what is good for everybody
And
as
he
a whole.
wanted to save his people
Yeah.
from war. He didn't
Hmm.
want war.
Yeah. And so like that's another example. And then her, although she didn't want to go over there and deal with all the shenanigans at the ball, she still went because she loved him and she wanted to protect him. And there's like all different examples throughout the story that talked about that, but I felt like that these three literary elements can really the author really used it to showcase that theme of sacrificing for the people that you love. And so, yeah, that's why I chose that.
Yeah, I really like that part, especially when the prince gave up, um, when he willing to not marry the queen
Yeah,
just because there was a big sacrifice for him to give up because he loves Cinder.
yeah,
He doesn't want to marry someone that treated him like how the queen treated him. She kind
yeah,
of she kind of take control of things. So um, it was a big sacrifice for
right.
the novel. As part of the novel, there was a big sacrifice. So, oh,
It's a
okay.
good story.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good story. I love it. It was so
Yeah.
long for me. I read it all day. So I was like, oh my god, it's so long.
Good job.
Okay, I will submit our paper and our thing. I think our next one is. Will you be back by then?
Next week.
I have no idea.
Let me see. Um, let's see. Our next Google Hangout will be on. I'm surprised I still have Wi-Fi. I mean, internet connection. Will not be next week. It'll be the week after on Monday. I'll
So
be
not
back
this
by then.
Monday,
Yeah.
the following Monday.
Hmm.
So you'll be
I'll
back.
be I'll be back by then.
Okay, and we'll just plan when we should go live.
Yes.
Okay, Sita, thanks for having your time. Enjoy your vacation.
Oh, I wish it was a vacation. Thank
Uh,
you.
Thank you,
Have a
Sita.
good
You have a
night.
good night, yeah?
Happy Friday.
Stop eating Tony food a lot, yeah? Don't eat it in front
I
of me,
can't
yeah?
stop eating.
Bye, Sita.
Bye.